Welcome, everybody. Welcome to Coffee and Clark's. I'm your co-host, JV Brabham.
And I'm Tyler Duncan.
And today we have an outstanding guest joining us on the show today. He is a professor of trumpet at Indiana University. He has toured and recorded with great musicians such as Maynard Ferguson. He's played with the Woody Herman Orchestra, former member of the U.S. Army Jazz Ambassadors. He's basically done it all. Incredible player, incredible teacher. I have so many friends who've talked very highly of him over the years. So let us please welcome the Joey Tartell.
Oh,
all right.
It's like the Ohio State. I like that
Yeah.
a lot. That's good.
So, but before we get into our questions for you, Tyler and I like to start off with a little bit of coffee talk because we value that so much in our lives. So, if you don't mind sharing with us, Joey, I don't know if you're a coffee drinker, but if you are, could you tell us what you're sipping on today?
I will be honest with you guys. I am not a hot beverage drinker at all. I'm not actually a coffee drinker. I do, and those who know me well know, I have more than just a bit of a Diet Coke problem. I can tell you this. So I'm happy to have a Diet Coke with you. I start my day with one. But let me just tell you this. There are different kinds of Diet Coke. I've listened to you guys talk about your beans and where you're going. This has been one of, in the least important thing of the past year. The very least important thing is my favorite kind of Diet Coke, which is the Diet Coke with Splenda, has been unavailable since the pandemic started.
Oh, no.
So, I mean, there is some real suffering going on there. So I'm just back to the regular Diet Coke.
Wow. I had no idea.
Yeah. So what are you guys drinking?
Tyler, how about you go first?
So again, last week I had Counterculture Hologram. This week I have Counterculture 46, which is a blend of Ethiopia and Guatemala. And usually I like more of the lighter, sweeter end of coffee. And this is kind of like the opposite. Smoky, full body, dark chocolate. And it's really nice. This is my first cup of it. Actually, I got the bag yesterday. But yeah, it's nice to change it up. I'm trying to experiment more with the whole spectrum of coffee, not just like staying in my little lane that I like. So it's nice. What about you, Javian?
So I'm also drinking something new. Just got a fresh bag of this yesterday as well. I've been drinking. You've probably heard me talk about Perks Coffee, which is out of Savannah. So I'm trying their blend. It's called Good Times, like smooth jazz in your cup. And so I was like, wow. Oh, I have to get this. I have to get this for this show.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah, so it's like a blend and has like notes of like vanilla and milk chocolate and this like nutty smoothness. And it's actually really good. I would definitely recommend,
just
if
a
you're
little
fan
Kenny G
or they sell. Yeah. Yeah, I'm not endorsed. I don't have an endorsement, unfortunately. But if they want to reach out, I'm open for opportunities.
Heck yeah, man.
So yeah, Good Times, like smooth jazz in your cup. It's the name of the coffee. So definitely try it out. You can buy it on their website.
That's
if
hilarious.
You don't live in Savannah. Awesome.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
So Joey, how did you get your start in music, and when did you know this was something you wanted to pursue?
Oh, sure. How did I get my start? It's fairly simple. Like, how did I start playing? I think most people, I grew up in Texas, so it's before 6th grade. You go over to the middle school, and I went with my best friend to try out some horns, and this is a bit of a contentious story with my mother now, who seems to think there's two things going on here. I went in and said, yeah, I'd like to play trumpet. And the band director's like, I don't think so. You can't really make a good sound on that. You should play tuba. And I'm a large person. You guys know me. So I think band directors are looking, going, let's get a tuba. Everybody wants to play trumpet. Everybody wants to play flute. Let's get a tuba player. And I'm like, no, I'd really like to play trumpet. And my dad had played trumpet in high school. So we had a trumpet in the house. And so they were like, okay, fine, you can just play trumpet. So my mother says, the band director said, you can't make a sound on the cornet we have here at all. And, he makes a sound at home on his dad's trumpet, so just let him go. I don't remember that part, but she says it's true. So I guess we may have to defer to her. So I just got started like everybody else. So, hey, it's beginning band, this will be fun. Let's go join up. But here's when I knew. This was, it's very clear to me. In 8th grade, I started playing in the youth orchestra. It was a high school youth orchestra, and in 8th grade, I made third trumpet in there. I felt very excited to be playing with the high school guys. And so they had this the trombone teacher local in town, took the brass every week. You know, we rehearsed on Monday nights over at Incarnate Word College, which is now the University of Incarnate Word in San Antonio, Texas. He'd take the brass out, and we'd go play brass choir stuff and do sectionals and things like that. And he said, okay, this Sunday, I need everybody to show up at this church at 8 in the morning. And I said, okay, Mom, you got to take me to this place, and I have to go. We're going to play. So we went over there, and we played. We rehearsed a little bit, and we played through the services, and he handed us all this envelope. And inside the envelope was $40. So this was like my first gig. And up until that point, I had never considered the idea. I mean, I thought about, hey, what am I going to do when I grow up? But I never really thought about trumpet because trumpet's just so much fun. And that was the first time. It was like the first thought of, wait a minute, people do this for a living. I could do this. And that really, it was like a light bulb went on. I'm like, oh, I'm just going to play trumpet. That's it for me. I'm in. So it was serious. It was 8th grade. And from then on, boom, that's just what I kept going. And that never really changed.
That's so cool. Getting that first dough, you're like, what? $40? I can buy a lot with this, especially at that age.
I'm a lot older than you guys are. So yeah, $40 when I was in 8th grade was like, I am loaded. I could go I was still putting quarters in video games. Like if I could have the amount of quarters I put into Donkey Kong back right now in Donkey Kong Jr., I think I could probably buy a car. So it's like, all right, man, Donkey Kong on me. Let's go. Yeah, absolutely. It was great.
Awesome. So you've performed and toured with, so many great musicians around the world. Are there any lessons that you've learned through those experiences? And it can be, life or music related, anything really.
Well, yeah, I could talk about this. I don't know how big the hard drive is. Like we could go on for hours and hours and hours.
Yeah, we're good.
We're good.
I guess let's start with the playing part because I imagine lots of us are trumpet players that are listening, right? So the playing part, being out on the road and touring and traveling. Let me back up one second. You guys both study with Dr. Chris Moore, right? You guys are both Florida State guys. We've talked a little bit, Jamie. We exchanged an email about how small the world is. I don't know if you guys know of Chris, our history, me and Chris, but this goes to this. In the summer of 1986, Dr. Moore and I were both in the Disney All-American College Orchestra. We sat right next to each other, and we were in the same apartment. But this was it was sort of like this was the first time, and this goes to what I was talking about with being. Well, I will talk about being on the road. So we get down there, and aside from how stunning we looked in red, white, and blue tuxedos, and if Dr. Moore won't share pictures with you, I will.
Please do.
Absolutely. Here's how that gig used to work. We were at Epcot Center, and we rehearsed during the day, and then Wednesday through Sundays we'd have concerts at 6, 7:30, and 9. So we'd have 45-minute concerts and like a 45-minute break. So we go out and play, but 5 nights a week, 3 concerts a night. So we get started. We're rehearsing for a couple weeks before we go on. And then we get going. And I remember sometime maybe in the first or second week, there was one show. It was like a 7:30 show. I went out there, and I just played. I don't think I had the show I wanted. So I walk off stage like, you know how you get mad when you didn't play well? And I'm walking off like, oh, man, I can't believe that was no good. That was terrible. Back at the break room. And then I look up and realize, 20 minutes, I got to go do that again. And that was really the first time I had that kind of, we're going to go, and we're going to go, and we're going to go, and we're going to go. So this is the big part about performing when you're out on the road, you're out on touring an awful lot. And Maynard was better at this than anybody I've ever seen. Like, we'd be, he almost always was on the bus with us. And sometimes these were long trips, and you get off and we'd be tired, and we were young, we're all in our 20s, and, Maynard was definitely a couple generations older, and we walk out and we're dragging, and he would walk out and just light it up from the first note. Like, oh, right. Yeah, concert time. It's time to put on the show. So that idea of one, consistency, right? When you're out on the road and watching Maynard every night just come out. And there were a couple of nights. I remember one in particular. He comes back and he says, hey, can you look at this? And he kind of rolls up his upper lip. And it looked to me like somebody had just taken like chicken wire and rubbed it on there. Like he looked cut up. He didn't feel good. He's like, yeah, this doesn't feel great. And I said, we need to cancel the concert right now. He goes, nah. I think I'll be okay. And he walked out and sounded just like Maynard Ferguson. It's like, right. So other teachers have said this to me. I'm sure teachers have said it to you. Nobody cares what you feel like. But, and you got to go out and put on a good show. And I'm watching Maynard do that night after night after night, where I know at the time, what was I, 26, 27? I'm dragging. He's got to be tired. And wow, is he lighting it up? It's like, right. This is about putting on the show. It's not about what you feel like. And no matter what you feel like, that concert is important, and being musically ready and doing all of that. The playing part of that consistency, building that into your practice, to build that into your performance. I've never seen anybody like it. He was the absolute best. He was great. Because when I was in the Jazz Ambassadors, boy, the touring schedule, and it's a little different now, the special bands, we used to tour a lot. And the tours were 40 days long, and there would be 10 days on and 1 day off. Oof. So you would do at least, and every day was in a different place, and sometimes you'd have morning concerts at high schools. So you'd go out for a 40-day tour, and you'd play 55, 60 concerts, and you'd have 3 days off during that time, Oof. So that consistency of, I got to be ready, and I got to be ready to go every single night. That is, from the playing standpoint, that's really important. And so I think I started to learn that pretty young, sitting next to Chris. And then it was basically the summer after that, I went out on the Miller Band. And then it was more interesting with road bands. It's like at the Disney thing, it's 5 nights a week, 6, 7, 39, very fixed schedule. And I think those who play in orchestras, they deal with that. Like, hey, this week, doesn't matter what happens, Friday at 8, we are playing this program. Road bands are a little different because you're out and it'd be like 3 nights in a row or 5 nights in a row and maybe 2 nights off or 1 night off, and very hit or miss. And that's a whole different kind of schedule to get used to. Like, all right, we're playing in a club, so we're going to do 5 nights. We're doing 2 shows a night for 5 nights in a row. But then we're driving for 2 days and then we're not playing at all. So again, that consistency of how to get that together. And so I'm a pretty rabid practicer, and we can get to that. But the other part of it from the performance standpoint is this. Remembering that in your audience, this is somebody's first concert of seeing this kind of thing. And this really struck me with Maynard's band, because I remember the first time I saw Maynard when I was in 7th grade, and it was just holy moly. Like, I walked away from that going, I didn't even know trumpets could do that. That was amazing. So I'm thinking, you got to take that seriously. When you're putting on a concert, people have left their houses and they have come to see you perform. So it doesn't matter what kind of day you had. You got to be up and musically fresh, mentally fresh. You got to put on that concert because that audience is there to enjoy themselves, and you got to give them something to enjoy. So not just from the playing standpoint, from the musical standpoint, take that really seriously. And boy, getting out young and doing that, after I did Disney after my sophomore year of college. Chris and I are the same age, so it was after his sophomore year of college as well. Like, we're sitting all summer playing 3 shows a night, 5 nights a week for 12 or 14 weeks. So I went back to college. So I'm a junior in college, about the 3rd week of school, and all I could think is, when are we going to play? It really changed, because then it's like, what's with all this rehearsing? Let's go. I was ready to then play a lot more, and then being out on the road, and then it's very different. And then I graduated from college, and my first job was in the Army. I won that job right out of my undergrad. So then we're out on the road all the time and playing. So you get really used to that. But it's an important part that I think sometimes gets lost, that a lot of times musicians, we're focused on ourselves. Like, we're thinking, how do I feel, and am I ready? And I'm like, right, but there is a big audience out there that's come. We got to give them something. We got to connect with them and give them something, and that's a huge one. That's all just the playing part, and we could take that apart forever and ever and ever. But the personal part is really, really important, because my Army experience was mixed. Like in the Jazz Ambassadors, the band was really, really good, and a lot of the musicians I was in there, I'm still friends with, and it was great. But there was certain Army parts of that weren't a great fit for me at the time. So the idea of how you deal with people, especially when you're out on the road and dealing and all of the time, to make sure that you're remembering that the people on the lower end of, the power chain don't have a voice, and they need one, right? So when I joined the Army, I'm one of the youngest people in the band, and I'm the lowest ranked people in the band because I just joined. And a lot of times it felt to me like my section leader and my NCO in charge were all representing the powers that be down to me rather than my concerns up to them, because I don't have anywhere else to go. So I would say, here's what I'm thinking. They're like, you got to go do this and you got to go do this. I'm like, yeah, but I have no voice to do anything else. So that was really frustrating. And one of the reasons I ended up just not staying. I stayed 4 years, and it was not a great fit for me, and I moved on. And for other people, it's great, and the dynamics of lots of those bands have changed. I'm just saying about my experience at the time, and that was a long time ago now. But being out on Maynard's band, I'll tell you again, this is a man who treated everybody in the band like, okay, what are you bringing? Great. That's why you're here. Right? So everybody who came out, I came out, and I certainly, I think I might have been his only lead player that ever brought a C trumpet out on the side, because all of my training, I spent my undergrad at Eastman, and when I did my master's, I was Gil Johnson's TA, even though I was doing a jazz degree. So, I'm a classically trained trumpet player that likes to do everything I can. So, I don't think he had the expectations that I was supposed to sound like or be like. And I watched that with everybody else. Like, what do you bring? And I watched that is how you treat people. So how you treat people is an amazing lesson to learn, especially when you're living with them. Because when you're out on tour, when you're on a road band, which don't exist in the same way anymore, but the military bands are still much the same way. You're really living together. These are people who are as close to you as your family, and how you treat them is unbelievably important. And watching that through every lens I've seen, and you watch people that don't get along and then have to sit next to each other for the next 35 years, I mean, we see it in academia. Javian, I don't know how long you been at Valdosta now?
It's my second year.
Your second year. So I'm sure you're starting to see, that person with this person and this person. You see the politics of academia.
Yeah.
Right? And Tyler, you're in the military. You know that there are certain people that are like, oh, that person won't sit. No, it's that person. And they seem to ignore. You see the politics and how to negotiate that. And, that's just true, and it is everywhere. But how to negotiate that best is, one, always be honest with people, right? Because I watch a lot of people try and hide. Well, I just won't say anything. I don't think that's a good solution either. But, to be honest and stand up for yourself. And if that doesn't work, then maybe it's time for another place. But watching that through both I don't want to say negative, because I think, like I said, my time in the military was, I would say, is mixed for me. And I was certainly young, and when I left, people were like, you just don't understand. You're never going to find a gig better than this. And I was like, I'm 25. I'm going to go out and see what else is out there. But there were people that actually really loved it and have stayed and did great work. I'll tell you what, you guys know Ginger Turner, right?
I know the
Ginger.
Name.
Yeah. Ginger, who's, she was in the U.S. Army Field Band. She came in right before I left. And she probably had it in a lot of ways worse than I had it. I came in and like, you play lead and do that. And they're like, okay, you're new. You go down and play third cornet. And by far, she was one of the stronger players. She stayed, and she really made a big change. And she became sergeant major of the band. She just retired a couple of years ago. And she did great work while she was there. It was absolutely terrific. So, maybe had I had a different outlook as a young person, maybe I could have tried that. But for me at the time, it wasn't that way. But then to get out on the road and see Maynard and go, right, this is how to treat people. This is great. This is the way to go. And even my time at IU, I've been here a long time now. I'm an old man. I got here in 2003, and the two trumpet teachers that hired me were Ed Cord and John Rommel. Ed Cord just retired a couple years ago. Now, the history of IU has always been a really, really good trumpet school and a really, really good music school. I couldn't be happier to be here, and I love my job here. The history back in the olden days, have been three trumpet teachers here for a long time. And there was a history where the three of them didn't really get along. So there'd be, you're in my studio and this studio, and those students often didn't get along either, and they kind of carry around chips on their shoulders about, but I studied with. So Ed Cord gets here, and this is before I got here, and went, well, this is ridiculous. We got to change this. So, he was instrumental in hiring John Rommel, and they had a great professional working relationship. And what I didn't realize when I interviewed was part of that was they were thinking, well, can we work with this guy? And they both thought, well, yeah, he seems all right. Let's give him a shot. Because I certainly didn't look like other trumpet teachers at IU. The trumpet teachers at IU have always been classical trumpet players, maybe guys comes out of orchestras. And, I took Marie Speziali's place here. Marie Speziali, when she was leaving to go to Rice, was when they hired me. Well, Marie and I don't look like the same trumpet player or same trumpet teachers, but they thought, well, maybe we don't need three orchestral people. Maybe we could look a little different, a little wider, and let's see what's out there. Well, that guy seems okay. Let's give him a shot. But again, part of that process for them was, let's see what kind of person we think he is, and could we work with him? Because they knew the history and wanted to make sure we have a good collegial relationship here. And now being on the other side of that, we did a search just a couple of years ago when Ed retired, and we hired Kevin Cobb. And, I knew Kevin just a little bit before. We'd played a couple of weeks here or there. I do a lot of stuff with Pop's orchestras. There was a couple of weeks where he was out in St. Louis after they'd had a failed search and invited him. And I was out playing a Pop's week. And so we actually played a week together there, and we'd been around each other. Well, if you guys don't know Kevin, he's the greatest.
Yeah.
Like, he's obviously he's a great player, the American Brass Quintet, and all of the stuff he's been doing in New York for years, subbing in the Met and subbing with the Philharmonic. But, that's not everything that we're looking for. We're looking for, all right, how's he going to be as a colleague as well? And he came in and we all thought, well, yeah, there we go. Well, this is easy. So we couldn't be happier that he's here.
Mm-hmm.
So there's a long answer, I guess, to did I even get to your question?
No, that's great.
Yeah, that's great.
That was it.
That is awesome.
Yeah.
So, continuing on this path of music in our field, what do you think is one of the greatest challenges facing our field in music as a whole? And it's great too, because, you provide both aspects of a performer and educator. So you got your feet wet in both, not just in one thing.
Yeah, I think we've got one big problem in each. So as performers, I think the biggest thing, our challenge as performers, is connecting with an audience. I think a lot of times one of my biggest pet peeves, and I love orchestral music. I love going to play with orchestras. But I think the weirdest thing that still exists in musical performance is how orchestras start concerts, right? So what happens? Everybody comes in, they sit down, the lights go down, the concertmaster walks out, we applaud. Sure, that makes sense. And then just a second, we're going to tune up. So that's weird to me enough, right? Okay, we're going to take some, we're not ready yet. We know you're ready. We're not ready yet. And then they sit down, the conductor comes out, turns his back to the audience, and then they ignore the audience for the rest of the show. That's a weird dynamic. Now, I know the history of it, but that still exists. And of course, now I do a lot of pops concerts, and I played with lots of great orchestras, which is really fun to do. It's a different dynamic. The conductor is talking to the audience. Usually there might be singers involved or guest performers involved, and they talk to an audience. They're connecting with that audience, because I think classical music, especially on the classical side, it's the last bastion of, oh, we're not going to talk to you. We're going to sit up here and play and we don't care if you're there or not. There's not really a recognition of a connection, not just musically, but actually making a real connection with audience members. And I worry about that, not just from, are people going to come see concerts, but are people going to even care to try and come see concerts because, oh, it's so stuffy and it's so snooty. We need to do better than that. And not just on the classical side, but kind of all across. We need to connect with an audience. If you're playing a concert and you, for lack of a better term, don't care about your audience, you don't care about, well, this is my art and everybody should come find me and appreciate me, I just think you're doing it wrong. You got to provide something and provide a connection. And a lot of times, even from the way we think about recitals, it is, well, I'm going to play my piece, I'm going to walk off, I'm going to play my piece, I'm going to walk off. I don't know, you guys are younger than I am. I don't know if you got to spend much time with Ryan Anthony, who, we just lost, which is one of the saddest things of the past couple of years. Ryan, I actually told him when he joined Dallas, I was a little angry at him. I said, I don't really want you doing this job. Listen, I know you're great, and you can probably play that job. You'll be dynamite. But here's what I want your job to be. And we had this conversation. I want your job to be trumpet soloist. You need to be an artist that goes out there and just does this, because he walks on stage and you just can't look away. I watched him doing recitals. He would walk out and have his horns all set up, and he would play, and then he would talk to you and explain what he was doing, what he'd been working on, how this came about as he picked up the next horn, and then play the next thing. He'd play an hour-long recital, and you're captivated. It was absolutely magic. Not just the playing, but the connection. And having played some pops concerts, do you guys know Byron Stripling?
Yes.
Yes.
You should. If you don't know Byron, you should know Byron. Now, the first time I ever saw Byron play, I was actually a sophomore in high school. I was up at a camp at Eastman, and he was in the Eastman Jazz Ensemble, and I went in to hear them play and went, oh, wow, that guy's good. And so a couple years later, I go and see the Basie Band, and to this day, I've been lucky enough to see lots and lots of world-class performers. I think there are lots of great lead players, and I've made a lot of my living as a lead trumpet player. I think of myself as a lead trumpet player. And I can be fairly judgy. I'm picky about lead players. I want to make sure it's great. It's not just good. There are a few that are in like the absolute top class. And watching Byron play with Basie's band, I don't think I've ever seen anything better than that. There's other stuff in that class, but here's a lead player. I'm like, yeah. Now he doesn't really do that much anymore, because now he's, he runs a Columbus Jazz Orchestra and he's a guest soloist, and he is one of those people. I've played his pop show in a few different orchestras, a few different places. He walks out on stage and he's got you. He's captivating. Everybody, you go see Byron Stripling and you walk off going, oh, I'm a Byron Stripling fan. Not just because he plays great. There are lots and lots of people who play great. He also connects with his audience. And that's a huge one, especially when I don't think people are often thinking, I should listen to some trumpet music, as trumpet players, especially. How are we going to get people? We got to give them something and connect with them both. Give them something musically that they can appreciate and connect with them. And that part I worry about a lot. I talk a lot about with my friends and my students. Now, as teachers, and Javian, you're young, so you're already better at this than I am. Staying relevant. I think lots of teachers who have been doing this for a long time are like, well, this is what I do. This is how I do it. And students are coming in saying, yeah, but, if you look at, like, for example, my career, I played a lot with some road bands, right? So I got to go out with the Glenn Miller Band. I got to go out with Maynard. I was out with the Jazz Masters, which is functionally a road band, and with the Woody Herman Orchestra, which was after Woody had passed, and they kind of put together bands from around the regions, just people who come together and play. We do some short tours or some concerts here and there. Those don't really exist in that way. So if I'm training my students to do what I did, they've got nothing to do, right? That doesn't make any sense. Because every generation, I watched master classes when I was 18 and 19 years old of guys in their 50s who'd come in and say, well, I don't know what you kids are going to do. There are no gigs. When I was a kid, it was great. Now everything's terrible, right? I thought, wow, this is uplifting. I'm so happy. I'm so happy you came to talk to us today. But I'm already seeing people my age saying that now. They're like, well, when I was young, there were all kinds of gigs, and I don't know what you guys are going to do. I keep thinking, wow, why? No, this is so wrong. Music is an ever-evolving business. It's always been changing. I certainly didn't do what my teachers did. My primary teachers, I studied with Barbara Butler during my undergrad, who is still teaching amazing and doing great work. I studied with Mel Broyles for a year, who's principal of the Metropolitan Opera. I'm not dying to play in an opera orchestra. I mean, I could take it every once in a while. I work at a giant opera school. I guess I'm not allowed to say bad stuff about opera. And then, Gil Johnson in my master's, who was principal trumpet of the Philadelphia Orchestra, he actually said to me when I was leaving school to go play lead with Maynard Ferguson, said, are you sure you want to do this? And I said, yeah, I'm pretty sure. I don't know. Gosh, that wasn't his favorite kind of stuff. So I'm definitely not doing what my teachers did. My students are not doing what I did. So staying relevant and knowing what's going on, not just in the profession, not just in music, but what music is out there as well. I've been talking with my friends recently, like, what are you using? What books? And you guys know Phil Snedeker's books, right?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Phil and I went to college together. Like, we were at Eastman at the same time. Again, how small the world is. Yeah. So these books started coming out, and I'm like, oh, Phil, check these out. These are great. These are terrific books. We got to be using these. When I was in school, I was using ancient books. But now there's so much more, not just the books that we're using. Yes, we need Arbans. Yes, we need Clarkes. Yes, we need Schlossbergs. I'm not saying we should get rid of those, but there's so much more stuff that we can go after. And from the literature standpoint, this is the other part. Well, yeah, you got to learn Haydn, got to learn Hummel, and you should. Those are important pieces to the history of the trumpet. When we think about the opening of the Haydn, 1, 2, 3, like, okay, yeah, another trumpet solo. And then you go to the half steps. That was revolutionary at the time of performance. You start with the cute little ding, dum, dee, like, oh, great, another trumpet solo. And then half steps, wait, keys, ooh. And that's important to our history. Like the second movement of the Hummel is something that is, for a trumpet player at that time, not possible. It was literally revolutionary for trumpet playing. So yes, we should absolutely use those pieces. We should learn those pieces. You should know those pieces. But it didn't stop, it didn't stop at 18 or even 1900 or even 2000. There's so much good music being written right now and over the past few years, staying relevant. And boy, it can be hard. I had a student bring in something and said, do you know this piece? And I'm honest. No. I was thinking about using this. Well, great. Let me write it down. I'll check it out. I'll do some learning. I'll do some research on my own. Yeah, we should definitely be doing that. And I find it for teachers, a lot of times the older the teachers get, the harder it is to kind of stay relevant, because it's like, well, don't you know who I am? And I've been doing it this way for so long, which can be true and can even be good, but that doesn't mean that it should stay that way. Right. So I think those are the two big ones for me on the teaching side and the performing side.
Awesome. So, I'm assuming like you were teaching all day, you're maybe not now with COVID going on, I was going to say performing quite often. But in a normal situation, how do you like maintain the balance in your life between work and life and everything else?
this is this is a good question. I remember asking Lori Frank. You guys know who Lori Frank was, right? She was a tremendous trumpet player and trumpet pedagogue. She was amazing. One of the questions I always had when I was touring an awful lot was it felt like when I went on break, you'd get a couple weeks between tours. Whenever I came back, it felt like I was starting over. Like the first couple days always felt like. So we were she was doing a master class at one of the Caruso competitions. She always came in as she was, a disciple of Caruso and talked about these things. And the teaching, and her own teaching was spectacular, even separate from that. So she of course, gets to the point in her master class and says, "Are there any questions?" And I was in the back, and it was mostly for younger. And of course, like always, dead silence, right? Nobody asked any questions. So I raised my hand. She goes like, "All right, Joey, what do you got?" And I said, "All right." So I asked, when you're out of the road and then you come home and you go back out, boy, I've tried everything. I've tried playing the show every night. I've tried taking days off. I've tried, overdoing, underdoing. Well, how do you keep it so that when you go back out, it doesn't feel like you're starting fresh? And this goes to a little bit of your work-life balance. The answer she gave me was this: "Hey, listen, if you figure something out, call me." It was a great answer. But I mean, I do have some general rules. My general work day is I get in early. I'm a morning practice guy. I come in at 7 in the morning, and I've got like my fundamentals, and I do all of that, and I go through all the horns. I'm a crazy person. I play 9 trumpets every morning. We can talk about that. All the way from piccolo down to bass trumpet. I'm doing that all the time, and then so generally that's for me like 7 to 9. And then 9 to 10 sort of open where I can answer some phone calls, emails, and my students know they can pop in at that point. They know I'm essentially here. And I normally start teaching about 10. So I'll teach during the day and their meetings and stuff that goes on with all of that. But what I like, as far as the balance part, is to have an end to my day. Now, as musicians and as both performers and as educators, we know that's not always possible. Because sometimes we'll I have a student with a recital at 8 o'clock, or I'm playing with this orchestra this week, or I've got a gig that night. But for me, I like the end of the day. So when I'm done teaching, I go home. Now, in my house, there are no trumpets. Like, this is the thing. I mean, I keep all my stuff. This is the nice part about living in a college town. Living in Bloomington, Indiana, my house is under 5 miles from here. So it's pretty easy to just pop in if I want to come play trumpet. So I can pop in and I can go home. And when I go home, then I'm done. Then I'm in the corner of the sofa. We just got a puppy last week, so that's a lot that's going on. There's a lot of action, as our 2 cats are not thrilled with the dog at this point. But so that then I can be done and I'm home, and have that there. Now, does that always work? No, of course not. And then schedule some time out, like when you get to the end of a school year and okay, everybody's graduated, I've got everything done. The next week, I'm going to creep in here in the mornings and then just get out. Which might even, you guys are young. If people call you for gigs, you have to say yes. That's what I tell my students. Like, you're at the point of like, will you do this? Yes, I will do this. I'm old now, and I can say, well, maybe not. You can call one of my. This person could do a great job, but schedule some time off. Because that balance part, it's important. I'm married. I've got 3 kids. Although they're old now. I have 3 daughters. 2 are in college, 1's in high school, but the 2 that are in college are both at IU, so we can still see them, which is kind of nice. We let them go away to college, but if they want to check in, and of course we like to see them, so finding that balance, it's hard, and it goes in waves, because when in, for lack of a better term, normal times, when you get into like December is always that sort of busy time. There's always Christmas programs. I've been regular out with the Boston Brass guys, and they go out and do their Kenton Christmas. We'll go hit the road. We'll be gone. And so, but what that means is, if somebody calls me for a Christmas Eve or a Christmas service, I just say no. It's like, okay, I've been out for 2 weeks. I'm going to be home for this week. I like the week. That week between that Christmas to New Year's week, oh, that's like my favorite week of the year. Now, I've played a lot of New Year's things. I missed that the past couple years. Cincinnati's always done like a big New Year's thing. You go and play with the Pops. That's a great orchestra, and they're really fun to play with, and that's been a kind of a semi-regular thing. So I'll sneak out for New Year's and come back. But yeah, you got to schedule that time as well. You schedule gig time, which means when you have the opportunity, schedule home time. That's part of it. But for me, the physical separation helps me a lot, because I think if I had all my horns at home and stuff at home, I've been lucky enough since we got a new building about 5 or 6 years ago, so all the air filters are right and the rooms are big. So I moved my office around so I'm against the back wall. My students can walk in and sit down on the opposite wall. We're never closer than 12 feet. We schedule half hours between lessons to get out and let the rooms go. So I've been able to teach in person, which is good. So then I've got that physical distance. I can have all my trumpets here, have all my stuff here. I can go home and actually have home time and then be present and active there.
Awesome.
If you
like
if you
that.
guys figure out something better, please call me. Absolutely.
Will do.
No, I like that. You hear people talk about that, like the separation, like not even like having the horns by you to literally like shut that off mentally. It's like, all right, that's done. Like being able to like close that. And I love that. That's really cool. So you co-host a podcast. When did this, it's called The Open Bell. When
Correct.
did this exactly start up? I remember seeing it. It's like late summer.
That's about right.
Okay.
Here's how the Open Bell started. So I'm in a group, Trumbamundi, like our trumpet ensemble,
Yes.
right? So like all friends, I'm sure you also have like text threads going with groups of friends, right? So there's always text threads going among the six of us that are talking about everything possible, trumpet related, sports related, ridiculous stuff related, anything we can. But Bill and Brian and I started talking as they got interested in sort of what I was doing as a trumpet player. And they're like, we're going to come visit. So they came out 2 years ago for a week in January and just stayed at my house. And they said, we want to come follow you around for a week. We're going to come in. We're going to come do practice with you at 7 a.m. We're going to watch you teach all day. We're going to practice in the afternoon. We're going to see what it's like. And during the course of that week, Brian has a big history with British brass bands.
Mm-hmm.
He plays in the Atlantic Brass Band in New Jersey, and when he took a sabbatical years ago, he went over and lived a year in England and played with a band. This is his thing. But he got to know some people over there, and he was talking to us about the variations in pedagogy. So here's how the whole thing started. Bill said, well, boy, that would be fascinating to talk about. I'm gonna write a grant. So he wrote an internal grant at his school. He teaches at Messiah College, which is now Messiah University, which I make fun of all of the time for being a Catholic school. I think now people actually believe that, so I'm going to keep saying that he teaches at a Catholic school. But what he did was write a grant saying, here's what we're going to do. The three of us are going to travel over to the UK. We're going to take a couple of weeks, and we're going to talk to the leading pedagogues around there about what their teaching is and what they're doing, kind of as a comparison as what they're doing cornet and trumpet wise versus what we're doing in the United States. And then what we're going to do is make a series for like a podcast series out of this. And we thought this is how we got started. And we thought this would be awesome. We'll go over, we'll take a couple weeks. We've got the connections. We're going to talk to these guys. We'll interview, we'll put it all together. This will be a really cool way to kind of compare and contrast the different ways we teach, within the United States and the UK. And then the pandemic hit. So, it's essentially the grant got approved and we're like, yes, nobody can travel. Nobody can do anything. And we thought, this is still a pretty good idea for the three of us to talk about trumpet teaching and stuff. So, we decided, well, let's just see if this will work. And, I'm not sure what started with you guys. I actually want to hear that. I don't know if I get to interview you, but I want to flip those tables a little bit if I can. Because for us, it was like, well, we've been doing this a long time, and we come from very different places. Bill, did some public school teaching and got his doctorate, and then started teaching college and has done that since his 20s. And Brian was out doing some teaching and has done the cornet thing and the performing thing and the brass band thing, and has been teaching at college and performs for a while. Where I spent a lot of my playing lots of big bands and doing all kinds of stuff, freelancing in the Chicago area before I started teaching. So we've ended up in similar jobs. We're all trumpet teachers, and we like our jobs and we like what we're doing. But how we got there is really, really different. I said, we bring an awful lot. What if we go at it this way? So it started as a grant proposal to go to the UK, which got shot, which we're still planning on doing eventually. Like, we do want to go over and do that. We think it's a good idea. But what if we just started the podcast anyway with just the three of us and see where it goes? And so we started talking, kind of mapped out how we wanted to go at it, and so, yeah, we've been running, we just recorded our 40th episodes next week. So we've been trying to record one a week. So we've been going almost a year. So we did like 3 or 4, and I kind of put them together and looked down and said, okay, let's let's go. So we kind of get ahead a little bit, and then started releasing them after we kind of put the first 4 together, listened to them, and thought, this will be okay, right? And then, as you guys well know, eventually you have to hit send or post and then say, gosh, I hope this is okay. And not have people going, who do you think you are? What do you think you're doing? But we've been getting actually a lot of positive feedback on it. We like what we're doing. We enjoy the time. So for us, it's like setting up some stuff, and then we just go in there and see what happens, But yeah, I mean, it really is that simple for us. It was like, well, let's just go ahead and do it anyway.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's cool.
I mean, Tyler and I, at least for this show, granted, we weren't planning to go overseas or do anything like that. It was very much we were having a Zoom hangout with some friends, some fellow FSU people, while we're all quarantined. And we're all talking for like a few hours, and someone's just like, yeah, we should like just record this conversation one day. And it's like, you know what, that'd be a good idea. And that kind of evolved into like, doing a whole podcast thing. And like when we recorded the first episode, Tyler and I were just like, we don't know if anybody's actually going to listen to it, but that's okay. It's for us, it's just this extra thing that we do. And, people have been listening surprisingly and enjoying it. We've also got some good feedback. So it's been a good experience, at least I think so. I can't speak for Tyler on that. But.
Yeah. I mean, for us, it's kind of like, if this starts to feel like work, then we'll just stop. Like the whole point of this was for us to be able to come together, meet some really awesome people like yourself, share their stories, and then, talk about more than just trumpet. Like you mentioned so many like life things that you've experienced, and like that I think is so important, because that's something that you lived out and experienced. And so that was a big thing for us. It's like, okay, we can get to the nitty-gritty trumpet stuff, or we can talk about how somebody's life experiences have shaped them and changed them and also influenced their playing. So yeah, it was very much organic in the start. So
yeah.
Well, and you guys are coming from the same schools at the same time, but are doing very different things, which means you bring a different perspective, which is awesome. Javian, you've gone right into the teaching part of this, and Tyler out in the performing aspect and the military special band part of it. Because boy, the other part of the special band thing, which is so present in your generation, is that when I was graduating college, this wasn't something that people were really thinking of. Mm-hmm. I didn't know about this. I was at Disney. There was a separate band, and again, how small the world is. Oh my gosh! So the trombone player in that band had gone to Florida State and was in a quintet with Chris Moore. And we were roommates. He's like, "Wait a minute, so you know Moore?" I'm like, "Yeah." Here's another funny story. Let's embarrass your teacher a little bit. He had at that time a yellow Ford Fairmont station wagon.
Oh man!
And it was a stick.
Oh, nice.
So my first time when I was down there with the orchestra, I didn't have a car during that summer. So he'd be nice enough. Oh, you can drive a stick? Okay, here, you can borrow this. He had a Mr. T air freshener in that car. Oh yeah, this was awesome. But so I come back 2 years later, and the trombone player is a guy named Paul Nichols. We've been very, very good friends since then. He said, "Oh, you know Moore? Yeah, but," and instantly great friends. But I get a phone call because they had an audition for the Jazz Ambassadors. And I think they had an open audition. And think about what that audition would look like today. Like Lisa Whitaker just retired from this job, right? So what do you get? You get over 100 tapes and resumes. You got to weed down. They had 8 people apply, and they didn't find any of them that were really that suitable. So somebody, I think he was either in the band or down, had seen the show. I was playing one of those Kids of the Kingdom shows in front of the castle. What? That's a college band? Huh. I wonder if he'd be interested. So they called the college program, said, who's the trumpet player? So I get a phone call. I'm in my apartment, and hello? Hey, would you be interested in auditioning for the Army Field Band Jazz Ambassadors? I'm like, I'm not. What is that? Like, we're a big band. We're in the Army, Huh, all right, what do I need to do? Well, send us this. And so, I went through all of the stuff that you have to do and go through all it. You had to take the Armed Services Vocational Aptitude Battery, the ASVAB, which is my favorite test of all time.
Oh, yeah. I bet.
oh, my gosh. Taking that test, I'm going, wow. And I was in the bathroom afterwards because they graded it immediately. I promise I won't go. This is crazy. This is just a funny story. But the guy came in next to me, he's in the urinal right next to me, and says, well, how'd you do? And I said, I don't know. I thought I did fine. For those of you who haven't taken the ASVAB, it's like an SAT form test, but it's really set at probably like an 8th grade level. Like it's basic information. Like it's just showing you're okay. And so he looks over at me and I said, I think I did okay. You? He goes, man, I sure hope I pass this time. This is my 3rd try. And I think, oh no. So I do all that kind of stuff. And then, so they could fly me out, because I was essentially, they would treat me like a finalist at this point. And I go out and audition. So I went in there and they sent me 3 charts. We played those 3 charts, and then we sight read their book for the next 2 hours and thought, wow, this band's really good. This is really something. And they offered me the job, and I'm like, wow, play lead trumpet in a big band. Yeah, I'll have to go through basic. Maybe I can make it through basic. I came home and watched Stripes again. And my mother watched Full Metal Jacket and says, "You're not going anywhere." I said, "You're watching the wrong movie." But I went in and, but then after that, it started growing. So, but, this wasn't a thing people were looking at as a career at that time in the same way. I was sort of, I think, on the front end of that, because then right after that, the Marine Band started turning over from the Vietnam era. And 4 of my classmates, bang, 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 bang. One of which, I think you guys know, John Hagstrom is in the Symphony. John came in the Marine Band the next year, and then Fred Marcellus, who was in my class, came in the Marine Band the next year, and I started watching. Oh yeah, this is, look at that, but it wasn't the same job that Tyler, you're in now. Like people in college thinking, I want to go into a special band. It wasn't that same thing back then. So the perspectives you guys are bringing, it's really very cool, and to watch that shift, and you're on the front end of that. Yeah, did you bring that to your own show, which is great.
Thank you.
So real quick, this is as you were talking, this came up. Any stories from basic training? I know that wasn't something that we had, but there's got to be at least one.
Well, there are probably a bunch. Let's see. Here's my frustration. I'm a bit of you guys, I'm sure one of you, if it's not one of you two, you have a friend who corrects your grammar and corrects your spelling.
Oh, yeah.
That person? I'm that person, and we're going to talk about that before I leave a little bit. We're going to podcast. We're going to come around to that. I had one drill sergeant that used the word lackadaisical, which of course isn't a word. It's lackadaisical. And it was hard for me every day not to correct that. But I will tell you, like I'm just listening to, there is a time in basic training where they teach you how to walk. They read from a manual. You stand with your feet together. On the count of ready, you raise your left foot. And I'm sitting here thinking, are they literally teaching us how to walk? This is crazy. But there were a couple of things. I was not good at making my bed or shining my shoes. Like these are one of those things where you come in and they've just trashed everything. You have to do them over and over and over and over again. So like lots of people, and you've seen this in movies, and this is true. There's one of the guys in there had gone to like a military high school and stuff, and he says, I'll do this for you, man, if you pay me. So I was paying this guy like, I don't know, $10 a week, and he would take care of my boots and he'd make sure the bed was cool. And it was immediate. Everything got better. Now the drill sergeants, they thought they knew, but they had no proof. So regularly I get the eye of like, boy, Tartell, you got better at this really fast. There's no answer to that. Those no, that's not a question. It does not demand an answer. So there was that, but this was the scariest moment I ever had in basic training. So those who are going into special bands, you go in as, I went in as a private first class. I think you might go in as an E4 now, but they used to go in as with a college degree as an E3. So everybody in basic is a private. You're an E1 or an E2 or E3. But so the drill sergeants are right around E5s and E6s, which is the rank special band gets after you're in for 4 months. And they warn you, do not tell anybody this, because those people have worked very hard and for a very long time to get to that rank. And they're beating the crap out of you for 8 weeks. So we had a captain's inspection. So I'm there at my bunk, and he happens to stop at me and says, so what's your MOS? And I'm like, oh, here it goes again. Now, the MOS at that time was 02S, which is special bands person. So I had to explain that the first time. Don't lie. Again, don't lie, because they can look it up. They're like, oh, see, Tartell thinks he's special. Special band. He's special there. I'm like, oh, no, that's the designation. So I said, it's special bands person. Oh, well, let me ask you a question. Now, did you come to us, or did we come and find you? And I said, well, I was asked to apply. So you found, yeah, we're out there recruiting. And I thought, oh, no, he knows. He's about to tell the drill sergeants. I'm worried that what's going to come out is, and he's going to get this rank. Like, oh, no, no, no. I am sweating like it's starting. It's happening. I'm about to die, you know. He says, yeah, it's really great. We're getting a lot of fine musicians, and, you know, we go out and find these people and bring them in and boom, boom, boom. And then he stopped and walked away, and I thought, oh. But that was the scariest moment of basic. But let me tell you one more quick one, and this is dead true. And like I told you, those of you can see if they're watching, I know you do the video and you also do just audio. I'm a large person and I'm a hairy person. So I've always been long hair, beard. I had long hair in high school. I had a beard all the way through college, and I've always been fairly heavy, right? So the only way I could get out of basic on time is if a family member checked me out, because it was December and they were closing out the base. So I called my mother and I said, listen, you got to come to my basic graduation. Otherwise, I'm here 3 to 5 more days. And that's not going to be okay. She goes, all right, I'll be there. So they do the night before graduation. There's a big giant thing, and then any family member can sign you out and take you out to dinner and bring you back. So we do that. We're walking, and I'm looking around, and a person taps me on the back. I turn around and look this person dead in the eye, who says to me, can you help me find my son? His name's Joey Tartell. My mother looked me dead in the eye, didn't recognize me. And
Wow.
I pointed at my name tag, because of course, you know, head shaven, I'd probably lost about 25, 30 pounds, no beard. And she just went, oh my God. I pointed at my name tag. But that is a true story. My own mother did not recognize me after 8 weeks in basic.
That's
amazing.
awesome.
Yeah.
Love that.
Now, wait, Tyler, you're in the Air Force, right?
I am, yes.
So you went to San Antonio, Texas.
I did.
That's that's my hometown.
Oh yeah, went down there. So when we got to go off base and have dinner and stuff, went to the Riverwalk.
Yeah.
Yeah. I went down there, which was awesome. Yeah, it was great. So I was in basic. It was like January through mid-March, and so it was a little bit cold, and then started warming up towards the end.
That's a lot better than doing it June and July in Texas.
Oh yeah, for sure. Yeah.
Absolutely.
Oh yeah. Well, before we wrap up, I do have one more question for you. Do you have any like upcoming projects that you're working on, or things that you wish to work on in the future?
Well, I mean, my group Trumpet Mundi, we're always talking about what's
Right.
next. Our 4th CD is almost out, which is nice, which means we're already planning for the next one, which we've had a running joke since we started. I will tell you the truth. The truth is this. JC Dobshalevsky, who helped start the group with 4 of us, early on said, we should do like a Christmas CD. And we mocked him mercilessly. Like, that's the dumbest idea. What is crazy? And then another year goes by, and we thought, that's actually a really good idea. So now it's a running joke, but something that we have talked about. And a couple of us have written some things here and there. So we don't know what the next project will be. We were supposed to be last year. We had a couple things already set up to go out and tour. We try and get out, at least once a year. And of course, nothing happened last year. So we do have some things set up, hopefully for the 21-22 school year, to get out to a couple of places, including out where John Marciano teaches. He wants to have us for a trumpet week out at New Mexico.
Nice.
But whatever the next project is going to be, there's always what's next with Trumpet Mundi, which is always great. I'm always attracted to whatever's going on trumpet-wise. But can I tell you a crazy story about something that just happened?
Oh, absolutely.
Sure.
This is not. I just told this before. I think I told this on our podcast, so you'll hear it on the Open Bell as well. Which, of course, I should plug and subscribe. We should do that.
Absolutely.
But you guys are a little bit younger. I don't know. Do you know who John Mellencamp is? Because John Mellencamp is a rock star, but he was really, really bigger in the 80s, like when I was growing up. So if you know a little story about Jack and Diane, I think ROC Can USA, big, right? Well, he's from Indiana. He lives here in Bloomington. So I got an email a couple weeks ago from a recording engineer I know that says, hey, would you be interested in playing on John Mellencamp's new CD? And I read that to my wife, and she was like, are you kidding? That's crazy. And I said, well, yeah, I guess I could probably find the time. But the setup as trumpet players, as guys like us, was so different than what we're used to. It was really weird. So I get in touch with, and finally, his guitarist is the guy who's dealing with me. He says, all right, I'm going to send you, I'll send you a chart, and I'll send you some tracks. So I get an MP3, which is just somebody playing piano and singing, and it's a ballad. And the chart is the words and the chord symbols kind of near the words. It's not at all music notation like we would normally see. He says, I'll be back in touch. So that was on a Saturday. And then on Tuesday, he calls and says, all right, I think we're going to cut this thing. What's your schedule look like tonight? And I said, exactly what do you want me to do on this? Because all he sent me were the tracks of the chart. I'm thinking, well, what do you want? Oh, some stuff around the melody and maybe a solo. Okay. All right, we'll be in touch. So he calls me at 4:00 that afternoon. All right, can you come right out? I'm on my way. So it's at this point, and you guys have seen me around festivals. I'm a shorts wearer, and where I'm teaching right now, it's mostly just the trumpet students, and I don't have meetings, so I'm in shorts most of the time.
Yeah.
At that point, I realize I'm driving out to the studio wearing shorts and pink high tops with my pink trumpet case. And I walk in and I think, well, John Mellencamp's never going to be there. This is like a trumpet overdub. And so they did some quick testing. They were very safe and all that kind of stuff. So I walk in. All right, Joey, this is John Mellencamp, Joey Tartell. And he's sitting there in the booth, and I'm like, oh, crap, Well, because, for people of my age, we talk to your parents who are probably in my age range. That's how old I am now. They know who he is, right? He's a big star. So they play through what they've done. And I said, all right, so exactly what do you want? They said, just a solo part. There's a part like right after the bridge. There's a break there with no vocals. There's a piano thing. And, I'd listened and I by the way, it's in the key of concert A. So it's in B for us. Right?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. So I thought, well, maybe they want me to play the melody the piano's playing. I said, oh, where the piano is. They said, we brought that down in the mix. Okay, so I'm not playing what the piano's playing. And so they play it. I said, to right here. I said, yes. And then John Mellencamp says, actually, just keep playing all the way to the end of the tune. Okay. All right, do you need anything? So we go in, we set up the mic, boom. The engineer says, okay, he goes back in the booth, play me something, boom, boom, boom. All right, can you hear? Yes, okay, record. Now, I will tell you, I'm a confident trumpet player. I've done a lot of stuff, and I know I can play well, so it's, I'm thinking at that moment, I have no idea what's about to happen. No idea at all. So I play thinking, well, I definitely listened and worked with the chart and tried to figure out what could work, what might not work, transcribe the beginnings and endings in case they wanted, hey, could you double? I thought I was prepared. And I'm talking to myself on the drive out thinking, be flexible, be ready. You don't know what they want. So be ready for anything. So I play through the solo part. The vocal comes back in. I got to play around the vocal, goes all the way out near the end of the tune. And then there's like click where I know they're talking for a second because I've been in booths. That's what you do. Then I hear this, the only thing I was not expecting to hear. Huh. Well, that was pretty nice. Like, are you happy with that? Like, am I happy with it? If you're happy with it, it's really your project. They said, huh. I said, I can do more. We can do it again. Whatever you like. Try to be flexible. Well, let's do another one. So we go back and do one more. And yeah, cool. All right, come on in the booth. So I walk in and we listen back, and John Mellencamp looks over and says, hey, that was beautiful. Thanks for coming by. And it was so weird, but as far as projects go, like that one just happened. Like that was a week ago. I'm always excited to do anything where there's trumpet involved. I remember the first time I got called for a pops orchestra thing, and I was like, wow, it's like an orchestra, but it's like a big band. It's like both of those things, And the very first time I ever played was Cincinnati. Eric Kunzel was still conducting. And the first thing we played was Jeff Tysick's arrangement of In the Mood that he wrote. He actually wrote for himself, but then Doc Severinsen recorded The Tonight Show. So it's like melody off the top. You're playing the melody. You're playing an improvised solo in the middle and then high notes over the end. And I'm like, well, we'll see how Cincinnati is. That's the first thing I ever played with Cincinnati Pops. I was like, oh, and I'm excited for that kind of stuff. So if there's trumpet involved, I want to go do it. So I'm always excited to do anything trumpet wise. And in the past year, I've been writing some things like trumpet ensemble things. I like the box of a cappella trumpet, like the idea of we're going to play, there's going to be nothing else aside from trumpets. What can we do? And I've done a couple. You can go check out my YouTube channel, which has some big band reductions. I've done like Shiny Stockings, the Basie chart, just 6 trumpets. I've done the Buddy Rich chart on Basically Blues, just 6 trumpets. I took one of the Maynard charts, one of my favorite ones, Country Road, and I actually just lifted Maynard. That's the one that made me get new microphones, because I was using a USB mic for a while, and that's the one when you're doing shakes on high G's and stuff. It just you can hear on the recording, because the recording I thought was okay. I'm going to leave it. You can hear knocking like somebody just knocking on wood. It's like, oh, that mic is. I need to get some real mics. So I've done some investing so I can sound good, hopefully for you guys as well. But I've been doing some of that stuff as well, which I continue to think, what else can we do where there's just trumpets? I like the idea of just trumpets. So I'm always thinking about what can be done with that. I always want to do that as well.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
I've got to definitely check out, especially when you guys put your when Trumba Moody puts out the Christmas album. I definitely got to.
Oh yeah, heck yeah,
it's coming eventually.
That's all great.
All right, can I ask you guys a question? And you can totally cut this out if I've overstepped at this point.
No, go ahead.
So, as a proofreader,
okay,
when I see an apostrophe, that usually means possessive. So when I see the Clarke apostrophe S in your thing, I'm like, wait, hold on a second. Is that plural? Is that possessive? So you guys, you make the proofreader and me a little crazy.
This is a good question. Tyler, I'll let you take it.
I don't have my doctorate, so I don't have much experience with that. So, Javian, that's on you, man.
I will tell you that is my standard cop out in Trumba Mundi. I am the only one in that group without a doctorate. Yeah, we call that group five doctors and their idiot friend.
Yeah. So that's kind of where I stand. I'm like, I haven't done much writing, so it's on you.
That's awesome.
I guess it's more possessive.
So this is Herbert L. Clarke's podcast, is what you're saying?
Yeah, this is his. An homage to.
I will accept that. That's perfectly good.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much for joining us today. I think if people want to get to know more about you, you also have a very, very excellent blog on your website.
Yes.
You have tons of different topics on pedagogy. So I think people should definitely check that. It's at joeytartell.com, right?
That's right. It's easy to find. You can
joeytartell.com. And he has a lot of great information. But besides that, if people want to follow you or kind of keep up what you're doing, do you have any other places for people to go and check out?
Yeah, I mean, like I said, joeytartell.com if you want to find our podcast, which is available on wherever people are streaming stuff, but also at theworldtrumpetfederation.com. You can find me there, because when you're thinking trumpet, you should be thinking WTF, obviously. I'm on all the normal places. I'm on Facebook. I'm on Twitter. I'm on Instagram. And everywhere I am, I'm Joey Tartell. I'm not hiding. I'm pretty easy to find. I will tell you, we got time for one little quick story.
Yeah.
All right, so there used to be this board that followed like Maynard Ferguson when he was alive, and it was all Maynard all the time. It was like a MaynardFerguson.com, and it had like a forum there, which I didn't know about until somebody said, Joey, you got to check this out, and sent me a link. And the link said, I know for a fact that it's not Joey Tartell playing lead on this album, and I'm playing lead on the album These Cats Can Swing, which is a charming and really good. I'm very happy and proud to be on anything with Maynard, obviously. And so I looked at that and thought, that's interesting information. So I created my username, Joey Tartell. And I said, that's interesting, because there are at least two things on that record that I'm not in love with, but that was the best take they had at the time for the whole band, and they took. So I know it's me. I don't know where you're getting your information. And then, of course, there's like, who do you think you are? And there's a back and forth. But when I'm online, I thought there are a lot of people who like to sort of hide. You have usernames where there's someone else. But this would have been in late 90s, early 2000s. I thought, no. If I'm going to be online, I'm going to be me. And luckily, Tartell, my grandfather came over from Italy, and it was Tartaglione, and that became Tartell. So it's kind of a made-up name. So it's pretty easy to find. If you're looking for Joey Tartell, I'm pretty much the only one.
Only one, yeah.
So that makes that part pretty easy. But yes, anywhere I go, I'm not hiding. But yeah, you can find me on Twitter, on Instagram, on Facebook. I have not gone over to, and you guys are younger, you can help me out with this. So are you guys Snapchat people?
I'm not.
No, so you're a little too old for it.
I have been in the past, but I never used it, so it's like I don't need it.
And now have you crossed over into the TikTok world yet?
No.
No.
Now you know who has. You know Gabriel. You know Gabe DiMartino.
Yeah.
Now he is out like doing trumpet stuff on TikTok. Like he's doing like trumpet pedagogy stuff on TikTok too.
Oh, okay. That would be cool.
He has gone that way. So I haven't either. I watch both my children, literally my daughters, and the college students. The Snapchat seems to be almost a primary means of communication.
Yeah.
That I haven't really gone to. And TikTok, it seems to be another primary means of getting, entertainment and information and stuff. But boy, so maybe I'm finally that old, but I need to learn more about those things. But
Yeah.
I'm happy to hear that you guys, you're a good generation, at least younger than I am, haven't crossed there either. So that's
Yeah,
good.
I've gone back and forth on Snapchat, but I haven't fully invested yet. So
That
yeah,
makes
Yeah,
sense.
it's too much.
yeah,
It's like before you know it, you could be on 5 different apps, and it's just
yeah.
like, ugh, it's a lot.
Too much
Right.
to manage.
It is. It is hard. But the hard part, and I know not to stretch this, so we'll make this a 6-hour podcast. The hard part is that I think there's a place where lots of young students are looking, and this is where they're looking, and in the absence of good people being there, other people fill that, which is one of the reasons I started my blog. Another reason to get a podcast, good stuff like what you guys are doing and what we're trying to do as well, is get good information out for students. Because if you think about like my teachers, Barbara and Charlie aren't anywhere online.
Mm-mm.
You know, and you look at other people. I mean, look at like somebody like Mike Sachs. Like I like Michael Sachs an awful lot. Like I've gotten to play with Cleveland a couple of times doing some pops things, so I know him a little bit personally and got to play with him professionally. Guy's 30 years professional major orchestra. He's not hopping online doing things. You know,
Right.
and these are the people who are at the, you know, some of the top in our profession. You ever see Chris Martin online? You know, it's not really, you know, but this is so in the absence of that, guess what? When kids are looking, they're finding other people. They're not finding the people at the top of the profession, and they're getting their information there. And that worries me.
Mm-hmm.
That does worry me that there's a lot of bad information out there, especially with how easy it is to polish up and have a professional looking video.
Right.
But then people are like, well, that looks good. And that's
Right.
something I've kind of gone after here and there in my own way without trying to just go out and bash people, which I don't think is a good idea. But I do worry about the ability to separate the quality from the quantity. If I put out 1,000 videos, I guess he has 1,000 videos. It must be good. Really? No, you can make 1,000 bad videos.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's true.
But
That's a
so
good
yeah,
point.
I do worry about that. That's why I was asking about the other platforms, which I'm not on. I don't have a lot of information,
Yeah.
but I do worry about it.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, we some people in my department, we talked about creating like a top, like here are the top platforms that students should be checking out. That way you can kind of limit some of like the bad information.
Yeah.
These are people who are out on TikTok, Instagram, and all these other platforms that you should check out. So hopefully that drives them to those accounts first, and then they can kind of go from there. So that's something we've toyed around doing, because like you said, there is a lot of bad information out there, or just like unrefined information out there. So, but before we wrap up, Tyler and I, we like to end our show on like, what are you listening to? So,
yeah.
Mr. Tartell, have you been checking out any new music? This could be any genre: rock, classical, jazz, pop, anything.
Okay, I'll be perfectly honest because I want to start with this. I'm not somebody who sits around listening to trumpet concertos all the time. That's not really what I do. But you seen Matthias Hoffs has this new he put out the Bach album last year.
Yes, I did. Yeah.
Okay,
really
I got to tell you, like if you haven't heard it, go get it. It's just stellar and unbelievable playing. And what I didn't know, and like I saw one of the like ads where he's speaking German and you hear the playing behind it. And I'm like, okay, I don't know what he's saying at all, but that playing's unbelievable. I'm buying that. There's a Telemann album, which I thought it's 3 years ago that he made. I didn't even know about. So go get that one too. Like and listen, like I said, I'm not sitting there going, well, yeah, I should really check out this version of the Hummel and the Haydn. I have them and I listen to them. I use them with my students. This is not what I'm listening to for pleasure. But Matthias Hoff's Bach album, yes, that's absolutely, it's great. Now, I listen to a lot of different stuff, and so this isn't intentionally like boom, boom, boom. But I thought, what am I really listening to? You guys know Marquise Hill?
Yes.
Oh yeah, yeah.
Oh yeah.
So I first heard his name because I teach at a camp in the summer. I teach at Birch Creek, which is a summer like jazz camp up in northern Wisconsin, and they have 2 different jazz sessions. And so I heard about this TA coming up from Chicago named Marquise. You got to hear this guy. You got to hear this guy. And I hadn't heard him. And then it was the Carmine Caruso jazz competition. It was over in Cincinnati. So I just drove over because it's only 2.5 hours from here. And there are 5 finalists. And I sat there and watched the whole finals, and Marquise was one of those finalists. And he came out and played, and I just thought, oh my, Holy moly, that guy's unbelievable. So I went up and introduced myself to her playing, and he's like, "Oh right, you're at Birch Creek, but you're in the other session." Like he couldn't have been a nicer guy, and I don't really know him at all. It's the only time we've ever really met. But that's sort of, he was really already putting stuff out, and so I started checking out. But boy, all of his stuff's really, really cool. But boy, the Modern Flows, is it part 2 or version 2, whatever it is? There's 2 of them. Go check it out. His playing is really, I don't know how to really put it into a box, right? Because you could say, well, he's a jazz trumpet player, so it's jazz. But it's not just jazz. It's very recognizably jazz, but there's elements of pop and rap and, spoken word, all kinds of things that are sort of mixed in. It's music. It's really just, it's music in a broader sense. I think what he's doing that very few people seem to be able to do successfully is say, here's my music. You can try and call it something, but I'm not sure it's really going to work. But it's great, and not just great from a musical standpoint. Here's what I need. My rules are very simple. Lots of people can make good music and don't play the trumpet well, or people that play the trumpet well that don't play good music. I need both of those things. So what I need are people who play the trumpet really, really well and also make great music. And boy, Marquise is definitely in there. And so if you're not listening to Marquise Hill, go, stream it somewhere, but then just go buy the records. They're really worthwhile. They're great. And you can find his website. They're links and easy to find. It's great stuff. But then from a purely, let's hop off into the pop world. And this is a few years old. I saw this video online of this guy doing this Latin project. And I thought, well, then click, and I watch. I'm like, that's really cool. And there's a guy named Tony Sukar, who's a timbales player out of Miami. And what he made was a Latin Michael Jackson project.
Oh,
now, this is probably
wow.
it's maybe 5 or 6 years old, but I'll tell you what, I love this record. I've been online and people are like, hey, I need something new to listen to. What do you guys got? And I'll put something out, and they're like, oh my gosh. So it's probably been out for a while. And so it's one of those things that I think he just needs more press, because they're recognizable Michael Jackson tunes, but done from a Latin perspective. And it's great. It's great playing. There's also trumpet playing on there, which I didn't know who it was until I looked it up. When I bought the thing and then got the little folder. It's Jose Sabaha. And again, in the small world story, Jose Sabaha and I've known each other since I was at Miami. When I was starting my master's, he was starting his undergrad. So we sat next to each other in orchestra at the University of Miami.
Nice.
Wow. So we know each other forever and ever. Nice. That's how small the world is. But I'm like, oh, of course. I called Jose. I'm like, I just bought this Tony Sukar. He goes, oh yeah, that was really fun. That's cool. But it's great. It's such a great groove. At the time I got the record, all 3 of my daughters were still in the house, right? So we're taking a trip somewhere, and I don't know what kind of family life you guys come from, but there are 5 of us in the car. So what happens? We get to argue about what we're going to listen to. And I said, I want to play something for you. Oh no. The last thing they want to hear is anything I've got to offer. And I put this album on, and it I think the first tune is I Want You Back, maybe, one of the old Jackson tunes. And they're going, but wait, this is really good. I'm like, no. Even my teenage daughters all liked it at the time. So I think, again, it's great music, really enjoyable and fun. Yeah. What are you guys listening to?
How about you
JV?
go first? Oh, okay.
You want me? Okay,
no, you go
ahead. So back listening again to Corey Wong and Cody Fry. And Corey Wong is one of the guitarists in Wolfpack. So I've been checking out a lot of their stuff. I kind of have like a playlist of those 2 artists. And I've been doing a lot of indoor cycling right now. And so I'll just put that on and listen to. Really enjoyable because they're really good storytellers and then also just great instrumentalist performers. And yeah, it's just, and then of course, like sometimes it'll transition over to Wolfpack, who Javian, you mentioned that you've been listening to, and they have this awesome overdub version of Katy Perry that they do. What's the song? I can't remember. I sent it to you, Javian, but I forget what the
I forgot then.
It's like, let's go all the way tonight. No regrets. Just love.
Just like that.
Something like that. Yeah. But
no, that's a Katy Perry song.
Yeah. What is it?
Wow.
I don't know.
Is that California Girls? Is that what that
is?
Is that right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So they take one of their songs and overdub her lyrics on it, and it's like, wow, this is.
Oh, I'm gonna check that out.
Yeah, this is pretty cool. And yeah, it's funny too because they take her original like music video for it, and then kind of like splice that with their home recording video version of it. So, but yeah, just them two right now, just kind of digging that kind of vibe. So, what about you, Javian?
So I've been listening to artists, at least recently. One, I mean, I'm sure you both know, Robert Glasper, which I've known, I've listened to him for a while now. But I recently just like went back and listened to some of his stuff, and it's just like it holds up so well. And he's done some really cool projects over the past, few years. He's done music for I think he did the music for that movie, the new movie, Judas and Messiah. I think he did some of the music for that. He's done music for like Kendrick Lamar, so he's well versed. But most recently, I started listening to Corey Henry, who you probably know. He was in Snarky Puppy. If you listen to that Lingus chart, he has like that long keyboard solo, like the solo that everybody knows now. But he has like 2 albums that he's released, I guess, in the past year. One of them was a Christmas album, which is really good, regardless of the season. And then his other one, the other one is Something to Say, which came out last year, at some point last year. So I've been listening to his stuff. He's incredible. He has some like cool project he did with like Jacob Collier a few years ago, maybe a year ago. So that's what I've been checking out. All good stuff, as well as all the trumpet stuff that I see. Like I saw the recording that you were talking about, Joey. Like, yeah, it's like top tier. Like when I think piccolo playing, like that's it.
It's gorgeous. Yeah.
Yeah, it's gorgeous. It's gorgeous. Well, Joey, I want to thank you again for joining us on this episode of Coffee and Clark's.
My pleasure. Thanks for having me.
No problem. And I hope people, check out your website, check out your blog, and take a listen to the podcast, Open Bell Podcast. Where is that found? Is that on like Apple Podcasts, or is it on YouTube?
Yeah, it's on Apple, it's on Google, it's on Spotify, and you can find it on our website. I put them up there too. So
awesome. So people, you want to listen more trumpet podcasts, definitely check that out.
And if you're out riding bikes, I don't know, Bill is a huge bike rider, and he's actually sucked me into it because IU closed down the gyms here, of course. He's like, got to get a bike. So I got to get a bike and go listen to podcasts while you're riding.
Yeah, exactly. And I'm assuming you're wearing some pink shoes, because that's why when I first met you in New Mexico, I think you came out to do a master class when I was out there, and it's like, man, who's this large guy, got the pink shoes, the long hair? I was like into it.
I am wearing pink high tops right now. Hold on, see.
There it is.
Nice.
Absolutely.
There it is. Well, thank you all again for listening to Coffee and Clark's. Before we wrap up, Tyler, where can people follow you if they want to follow you? I know you're kind of on a social media hiatus.
I am MIA when it comes to social media right now, but you can find me, just type in my name on Instagram and Facebook. Again, if you send me a message or something, it'll sit there. So I apologize. I won't open it, but I have to step away for the moment. But and Javian, what about you?
You can find me on Instagram at nerdyprof, and you can find me on Facebook, just my name, Javian Bravo, or Google search my name. You can find some stuff out there as well. So thank you all again for listening, and we hope to bring you more episodes very, very soon. All right. Please subscribe on YouTube and Apple Podcasts. Give us 5 stars, and we'll keep pumping out content. All right. Thank you all. See you next time.